Good evening. I call this meeting of the Johnson City Board of Commissioners to order for Thursday, August 17th, 2017. Tonight our invocation will be given by Lewis and Sandy from the First Presbyterian Church. If you'd stand for the invocation and then stay standing for the pledge, please.
Let us pray together. God, we praise you for being a God of grace. And we thank you for the second chances that you give us so undeservedly. And we confess that we're apt to do our own thing. So tonight we do pray that you would give us wisdom, you would give us guidance, that we might help guide your city of Johnson City and its people. So be with us tonight, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mr. Stahl, just real quick, I'd like to follow in the footsteps of my colleague, Dr. Van Brocklin here, just take a few seconds to say a few words. The news has been kind of disturbing for the last week or so, and you can feel the tension in our country, in our city, in our state, and just in the air. I think it's important that we remind ourselves that we are responsible for our own community. Nothing that happens in Washington or Nashville can make us act in any particular way towards any other person. So let's just be aware of that and be nice, be polite, smile a little more, maybe hug a little more, and remember that tolerance isn't tolerating things you agree with. Tolerance is tolerating things that you may vehemently disagree with, but understand that everybody's got a right to their opinion, and I think we'd all get along a little better. So I just want to see our community in many ways, that being one of them now, and I don't want to follow anybody's footsteps. I want us to if we set a good example here, perhaps the rest of the world will follow. So let's take care of what we can take care of here. But for the grace of God, we have not had some of the issues that other places have had, and maybe we can stave that off. So just want to take a minute and say that. So Mr. Stahl?
Mayor, first item is approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes.
Mayor, next item we have proclamations, resolutions, and presentations. I just want to direct your attention and request by the city manager will be here within about 20 minutes to move a Fire Bureau Training Award to after the consent agenda, along with the city manager's report. He requested that, and also direct your attention to an item request to be added to the agenda, the consideration of a certificate of compliance for Chris Joker of Tri-Liquor, Piney Flats. So I just want to bring that to your attention before this.
20 minutes should be enough for us to get the meeting done.
It'll be up my hopes, certainly.
I don't know, this JC 101 crew may be a little rowdy.
Yeah.
Is that, we need to take action on that?
Yeah, I'll move addition to the agenda, the consideration of a certificate of compliance for Chris Joker Tri-Liquor, 6681 Bristol Highway, Suite 75, Piney Flats, Tennessee, please.
We have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes.
With that in mind, we have a presentation of the JC 101 summer session graduation certificates. First item.
All right, can we get our police protection down here, please?
It's a great class.
Yes, yeah, just mix in there and all squeeze in together. That's fine to go in that way, Wilbur.
Wow.
Is this thing on?
Nathan?
It is a pleasure to see such a crowd here tonight. We really, really appreciate you guys taking the time to complete our JC 101 program. I hope you found it interesting. I feel confident that you did. There are aspects of the city operation that you would have no inkling of if you hadn't done this. But it's a significant investment in time, and we appreciate you doing that. And we encourage you to take what you've learned and apply to a board or commission. Help out any way you can, and you know what? Run for office. That's what it's all about. So we appreciate that. It's quite an undertaking and an investment in time. And don't forget Citizens Police Academy, which is pretty awesome too.
Do you want me to call out the names? You would want to do that?
Now, some of you I don't know, so just kind of raise your hand when you. Some of you I did.
They'll just step forward on this. We do appreciate this class. It's been a fantastic class. One of the biggest ones we've had. You've been active. Keisha and I both want to reiterate. We hate to say it, but you're our favorite. Don't tell any of the other alumni.
She tells every class that.
Oh, wait a minute. Uh-oh, I am in big trouble now. I know, the vice mayor just waved at me. And also former mayor. They were both in the class, too. I'm in big trouble now. Okay, Nathan Brand. Do you want to, Nathan, stand up here and we'll get a picture with you and the mayor presenting it to you. Kathy Carter Bisner. Charlene Claybaker. Oh, Carlene, I'm sorry. I started to say, where are you? Betty B. Cooper. Uh-oh, you're the pet, huh? Kate Craig. Chris Dyer, and this actually is his second year of taking it. Some have asked about taking it more than once. Yes, you're more than welcome. Yeah. Also, Lauren Farrell, but she wasn't able to make it tonight, but we wanted to go ahead and mention her name, and Susan Hart and Matthew Hart, a couple of which we take lots of couples, as you know. They were not able to make it tonight either. Wilbur Henderson. Wilbur's behind me.
And I just learned that Wilbur's wife taught all three of my kids, so. Thank you, sir.
Steve Holder. Joe Hopkins. And Joe brought his wife with him tonight, and she's going to take it next time. Jody Jones. And Judy Jones. Doug Lambie also was not able to make it tonight, but he is a graduate. I think he made it to all of the classes. Betty Ann Profit. Oh, that's right, Betty wasn't able to make it tonight, too. This is their second night of class. And Brandon Trent was not able to make it. He's, I think, marching or something. Joe Willems. And actually, this is her second year, too.
Wow, congratulations.
I took it 10 years ago.
Oh.
And I have learned an immense amount in the city. And I think it's a great networking area. As a result of the first time I took it, I now volunteer for the Johnson City Senior Center. I'm chair of the advisory council. And many other organizations. Oh, the SALT Council, Seniors in Law Enforcement Together. So there's lots of opportunities for boards and commissions. Thank you. It's a great program. It's a great program.
Thank you.
Keisha. And Becky, you're wonderful. Becky is wonderful.
What about the mayor and vice mayor? Yeah, yeah. And commissioners? Yeah.
Mike Williams.
So how wonderful was it, Mike? It was great. We'll send that.
You're going to have to repeat that one. Sue Wise.
It's a shame that you don't know anybody on this board.
Jim Wise.
Likewise, it's a shame you don't know anybody.
Michelle Treese. It's kind of out of order.
Best student, correct? We're gonna send the mic down and let everybody sing. Congratulations.
Dottie Slaughter. And Rick Simons behind me, and he's brought 3 potential students in the back. No, oh no, there's.
There you go. Here's the mayor, vice mayor, and city manager.
You do know the city, that's got, oh, oops. Yep, you just cracked it.
There, wait a minute, since we have a few extras. Don't eat it. Thank you.
Yes.
You want to send, let everybody
Yes.
introduce yourself?
Yes, we've already talked about that. Name and comment if you so choose to.
Hi, I'm Wilbur Henderson, and it's been a privilege to take the 101 class. I've learned a lot about the city, and I understand where a lot of the money goes and what it means in the city. But I would advise the city commission to be more alert to 3 or 4 different programs, and that would be number 1, the Johnson City Police Department and their needs. Stay close to them because they're protecting the city. I recommend some way or other, I do have relations there, and I recommend some way of a pay raise for these gentlemen and ladies because they start out with a very low salary and they're risking their lives for you, for all of us as citizens. You never know. We learned a lot by going down to the range. Those guys that wear something like a bomb, if there's a bomb in the city, just putting the helmet on alone is a challenge. And he's putting his life, limbs, and everything in his professional training and where you send them and what you do for those men as commissioners and ladies. They have a very outstanding leader. He needs to be commended for a big heart. But I encourage you to be at roll call. Take a biscuit one evening. Ride with the gentleman if you haven't done it. I encourage anybody to ride with them. It is an experience you won't forget.
Thank you, Wilbur.
My next thing is the fire department. I've got the mic.
Thank you. I saw them.
Pass it on that way.
But do support the fire department and all them, and Jenny Brock.
Good evening. My name is Carlene Claybaker. It has been my pleasure to attend almost all of these classes. I did miss one. About 10, 13 years ago, my neighborhood was engulfed with crime and pain and many challenges. And we began working together, and we began embracing diversity and partnering with the police department and many other agencies that I'm afraid I can't remember to name. That experience led me to learn about Johnson City 101 and some other opportunities. Unfortunately, until last year, I traveled all the time and have not been able to avail myself of this opportunity. I'm going to take the class again. It is extraordinary to find out how everything works in the city. I think you come away from this class with a distinct sense of pride and faith in all of us as a community as we work together, warts and all. I appreciate everyone who facilitated all of our meetings. The food was great, by the way. I especially liked the charred table. Thank you all very much.
My name is Nathan Brand. I'm new to Johnson City. I've been moving around for many years as my wife finishes up her schooling, and it's been a real privilege and an honor to take this class. I've always wanted to get involved in city government. I've always been interested, but I've never lived anywhere long enough. So if you've seen me taking notes in the back of the bus for the past 8 weeks, I have been learning an immense amount, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity. So thanks for everyone that helped facilitate this.
Jody Jones, just thank you very much. Certainly a lot of knowledge. I've been in the city for 11 years, and I felt like I knew a great deal, but I learned a lot more. And I think what impressed me most was all of the facilitators, many are sitting over here, who took their time out of work at the end of the day, stayed around for hours in some cases, and really showed their commitment to and energy for making the city better. That was really impressive. So thank you to all of you who did that.
I'm Joe Willems. I already said a little spiel, but this is an outstanding program, and I would highly recommend it to anybody. As a matter of fact, the lady that could not be here tonight, I recommend it to her. She works at ETSU with me, and she was unavailable to attend tonight too. But pass the word, and I hope that y'all can continue to offer more programs, budget allowing, I'm sure. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I'm Sue Wise, and I just want to say thank you. We learned so much, and we really appreciated the high caliber of people who work for Johnson City.
I'm Jim Wise, the other half of the team, and all I can say is that I was really impressed with all that goes on behind the scenes in this city. And it was a real eye-opener to just see, again, the quality of work, the dedication of the people. And I think, is it Ralph Pinzola? Phil, okay. All right. And the beautiful plants in downtown Johnson City that have thrived through the summer, somebody's taking care of those. And really, driving through Johnson City has been a real pleasure. I come up through town far more often than I used to, just because I like to see what's happening. So anyway, just good luck to everyone, and I'm very impressed.
I'm Kathy Carter-Bisner. I sit on many boards and committees with the city, and we are in good hands. I feel safer with Chief and the SWAT team and the fire department and the folks that work with our prisoners and crime prevention. We're very blessed. I just have two comments I'd like to hit on. As a social worker, I advocate for the underdog. I would like to see our adult daycare have a larger facility. There's such a huge need for that. It's a blessed facility that we have that our seniors can go to during the day when no one else is around to take care of them or to give caregivers a break. That's just a wonderful program. I would like to see that expand for them. And the other thing is I would like to segue into your comment about the problems we are having right now in our country. We have an opportunity to be a forerunner with the Langston High School for our black community. I would like to see the Leeds Council have full control of that. I know there's always funding issues. But I have met with them, and I have faith and confidence that they will make the right decisions with that building. I would like to see it be the Langston Educational Art Development Project. I would like to see the Leeds folks be able to run it and make the decisions. I know Princeton Art Center is welcome to come in because of the money that they can bring along with them, but I would like them to come as tenants and not leaders. I would like it to stay in the hands of the Black community. And I would like to see that happen. I don't want to go to a Black Historical Museum or a Black institution and have white folks or non-Black folks tell me what it must feel like or it must have felt like to go through the struggles and trials and tribulations that they have gone through. I don't want to see that any more than I want a happy married woman telling me what it's like to raise children as a single parent. If they haven't walked the walk, they shouldn't walk the talk. So I would like to see that happen. So if possible, that would be awesome. Thank you. Thank you for this program.
I'm Judy Jones. I've been in Johnson City for 10 years. I moved here when I retired from public service in Columbus, Ohio. So I was very interested in seeing how a small city operates because Columbus is approximately 12 times the size of Johnson City. I was very impressed with all of the leaders who told us about their departments. I was impressed with their dedication and their enthusiasm for their work, and I'm proud to be a citizen of Johnson City.
Need some more line here. My name's Kate Craig, and I grew up here. My family moved here when I was 3, and after college, I thought I had to flee here to just kind of, I don't know, feel like I found my place. But I came back about a year and a half ago, and turns out this is my place. And so I was equally reminded of that as I'm touring the city and seeing everybody that's just as passionate about this place that I call home. So I'm just very grateful that everybody's here. And, you know, just the fact that we're showing up and there's more than just us out there that care about this place. And so equally as we have ideas and all that, I hope that we all feel empowered to do something about it, not just ask somebody to do something about it, but to actually do something about it.
I'm Betty B. Cooper, and we lived away from here for 40 years, and it has been wonderful to be back. I think every department we went to, we were overwhelmed by the quality of the program, but also by the quality of the people. We're very proud of Johnson City.
I'm Dottie Slaughter. I have lived East Coast to West Coast, North Coast to South Coast, and in South America. And this is home. It always has been, except I lived in Knoxville for a while. But I'm glad to be living here in Upper East Tennessee. We have so much stuff going on for us. We've got good education. Don't forget the teachers need to be paid well. We have good police. They need to be paid well. We have good firefighters. They also need to be paid well. But I am glad to be in Johnson City.
My name is Michelle Treese. I am a recently retired teacher from Johnson City Schools. This program was amazing. I met so many wonderful people. The passion is incredible. And again, learned so much about this area. I've been in Johnson City. I came here in '78 to go to school. I went back home. I came back here, and I've been here living since '85, and very impressed with my town. A couple of things that I know. 8 weeks, I think we were here for 8 weeks, visiting multiple places each time. And I'll have to say, I never saw an African-American face in one of the positions that we met until this last class, and it was Libby Murphy with Juvenile Detention Office. So my recommendation is there's got to be more people of color in here. We've got a great town. You will see my name. I turned in my name for the Art Council, so I expect a phone call. And I am considering running for school board. I expect another phone call and some money. But I want to see more people of color because I know that the black people live here and all other kinds of colors. So my mission is if I make a suggestion, I promise you I'll come up with some response and some solutions to that. I won't just make a call out there and not give you something to work with. So you will see me again. And this is a great program. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Mike Williams. I moved back here after being about 32 years away for my career. Lived all over the United States, decided to move back here. I'm glad I did. It was a great opportunity to learn how the city works, so forth. If I might say one word about the couple that couldn't make it tonight, they spent about 3.5 years researching. They lived in California. Spent 3.5 years researching where they wanted to retire, and they chose Johnson City. And I think they made a great decision.
I'm Steve Holder. I grew up in Johnson City, so I've been here a while. I can say this class has been a pleasure. I do have a new, greater appreciation of all you fine folks that run the city. I enjoyed every place that we visited and all the people we met, so I have a lot more confidence in what's going on in the city, more than I used to. And I also have applied to the, Public Arts Committee and also the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, and I would love to serve on either one of those. And thank you for this opportunity. It has been wonderful.
I'm Joe Hopkins, and after living in Elizabethton for 44 years, a year and a half ago we moved to Johnson City, to the old folks' home, Cornerstone. And during that 44 years, I could never find my way around in Johnson City whenever I came over here. But now, after taking this course, I can still not find my way around. But at least I know where all the major functions reside. And it's just been a really good course, a good opportunity to get to know the city. Thank you very much.
Chris Dyer, second time taking this course. It's great when the city kind of basically opens up to you and lets you know like what they're doing. I got to see the evolution of the fire department go in their rating from an ISO. I think it was a 2 or 3, but now we're a 1. We're one of 200. Was it 219 or something? 200. So we've got a really great fire department that does more with less than you can really imagine. The rest of everything is great. Love the downtown. Keep up the vision, and thank you. And thank you, and thank you, Chief. But anyway, thank you so much.
That's it. Thank you all so much. Mayor.
Nobody trips.
Thank you.
We had a blast. We're going to form a gang now.
I think I've heard all these people tell us we need to raise taxes, right?
That's kind of the
See,
story I was hearing.
30 days.
Good to
Thank y'all. Thank you very much.
Good to see you.
It was all excellent.
They were the most eloquent couple out there.
Thank you. Good seeing you. It's good to see you. You
He's staying for the meeting.
Gonna stay? Good. Good. Yes, sir.
Oh, is that right? Oh, that's
I understand. It happens.
I graduated with Mike Williams and Will Pavone.
All right, well, the chamber's empty. Mr. Stahl?
Mayor, next item is a presentation, the Targeted Community Crime Reduction Project Day Reporting. So that's before you. Assume Becky Haas is coming up, working her way up.
Miss Haas.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Mayor Tamita and Vice Mayor Brock, Mr. Stahl, and commissioners. So kind of in a bounce off of that wonderful celebration, wanted to just kind of celebrate tonight a program that was started under the Targeted Community Crime Reduction Project, which I was the director, and now not only continues to have life, but is bringing some reform across the state of Tennessee. So very briefly, I'm just going to kind of walk back through a timeline. And really tonight, my intent in being here is to thank the commissioners, thank the city government, thank Chief Soroy, because all along the way, when we ran into some challenges and things, you all showed a lot of trust in myself as a director and the team, and you approved MOUs and just kind of went with us. So very quickly, I was just going to kind of walk through the Day Reporting Center. In the planning phase, when I came to the police department in 2012, Office of Criminal Justice Programs, we were the 7th city across the state to receive this funding. And they kind of pulled me aside and said that no other city had really come up with a very strong offender intervention. And so one of the roles of this program was to reduce recidivism. So we kind of knew we had our work cut out for us. And very early on, the Tennessee Department of Corrections recommended to Chief Soroy and I that we take a look at the Georgia model of the Day Reporting Center. And within 30 days of me having that job, I met Dr. Jennifer Peeler in North Carolina, who worked for the Council of State Governments, and she began to school me on the population that's the most likely to go back to prison after release, and that is high-risk, high-need felony offenders with addiction. So she strongly encouraged that we take a look at that population for our program. So we formed a development team in February of 2013. OCJP wanted us to be able to verify that the 2 neighborhoods that the grant was for, that we could sustain a program like that. And so when we pulled together the partners over there on the right, the judges in Washington County Criminal Court, Frontier Health, Alternative Community Corrections, Tennessee Department of Corrections, Families Free, and the police department, we were able to see that indeed we did have a population in those 2 neighborhoods. And then again, we had to get the buy-in from the judges. The judges told us that every 30 days they get recommendations of programs. But what really sold them on the Day Reporting Center model was that when we came to present it, we had all the major players in the room that really worked with corrections. And then we received approval from OCJP as the grant took off in April that we could actually create a treatment center. So this was the design. Dr. Peeler kind of schooled me in the fact that high-risk, high-need felony offenders, that we needed the kind of program dosage that would really stretch out over some time. So we developed a 1-year model. Ashton Belcher's with me here tonight from the Tennessee Department of Corrections, and if I made any decision right, it was in hiring her as a program manager. And it's really hard to go through how some of these things, we had to create programs for a whole year, 3 phases, and not one of those groups could be close-ended. Everything had to be open-ended so that if a judge ordered somebody new into the program, they could come at any time. So just some of those kinds of hurdles. So that right there is reflective actually of the groups that it is right now as it's in the hands of TDOC. The program takes 12 to 15 months to finish. It kind of goes along at the pace of the participant. Other things that were decided under TCCRP in May of 2013, Ashton was hired. We located a building which we inhabited First Tennessee Human Resource Agency for 3.5 years. We hired a Frontier Health therapist. Again, city commissioners were backing us all the way by approving our MOUs. And then all of a sudden it occurred to us we created a program that needed 11 facilitators a week, and I only had a budget to pay for 2. So we got resourceful and went out into the community, and that really was the home run that set us apart from the Georgia model. And so we formed new partnerships. When I met with then the CEO of Goodwill of the Geneva area, Mr. Miller, I really was just hoping to get somebody that would come to the program and do job skill training. And Mr. Miller said, how about this, we'll fund a full-time position just for your program. And so then UT Extension, Washington County Health Department, ETSU Psychology, there's a professor, Dr. Andy Clements, that for 4.5 years has fed the program lunch every Monday, Lifeline, ACCP, and TDOC. So all the partnerships began to step up. And then we opened our doors to the DRC, and the only way to come into the program was through a referral from the Washington County Criminal Court judges, and we had to do some training because nobody knew what this program was. So then we quickly made news there in November, right there in 2013, was in both the Johnson City Press and the Kingsport Times. And then, of course, there's plenty of challenges. We quickly found out we didn't have enough referrals, and the judges were a bit frustrated. So again, I came back to the commissioners with a request to expand that one program of all the TCCRP to all of Washington County, and again, you all approved that. And OCJP gave approval, and we had some other challenges, but we just met those. We had a great team that came together and met them head on. Now, the other thing that was my big part as the director was to find sustainment for the programs. And so the program began to continue to get traction and really flourish. So I wrote a couple of grants that both were declined. Kind of the time continuing to tick. In November 2014, I was over at the program just for a staff meeting and was introduced to somebody from Nashville that was there on hand, and they suggested, why don't you see about offering it to the state? And so I contacted OCJP, and they said, well, let's do a cost analysis. Well, all that community in kind ended up, long story short, where the program cost $10 to $12 a day for someone to be there instead of $74 a day to be in prison. So it really made sense for the state to take it on. And then we got a letter of support from Judge Street, who said to Commissioner Schofield that if it wasn't for the Day Reporting Center, 100% of the people that came before him in the court that violated, that fit that demographic, would have gone right back to prison. So it kind of made sense. And so in December that year, we submitted a request to TDOC and pretty quickly got some interest back from them. And then in August of 2015, I got a phone call. Actually, my husband and I were on vacation, and Assistant Commissioner Strotter said that they would fund it effective April 1st when our grant ended, but we weren't out of the woods yet. Come January of 2016, with 3 months left in the grant, Assistant Commissioner said, we can't fund it. The State Comptroller said we can't start funding till the new fiscal year in July. And so we really had no options as far as writing grants. We only had 3 months left. And so I contacted OCJP, who stepped up with $30,000 to sustain the program. And again, the commissioners approved that extension. And then in July of 2016, at a wonderful graduation ceremony, it made a lot of news, we transferred that program to TDOC. But really what's exciting and why I'm here tonight is that since that, in this last year, and this is wording right off the TDOC website, as a first step that TDOC did in taking the program to develop a statewide model, they acquired the Day Reporting Center from the Johnson City Police Department. It was first opened by us in 2013 through grant funding, and then it talks about the programming, and then it talks about the participants. And then it goes on to say how that using the Johnson City DRC as a reference, TDOC looked at some other state programs, but again has replicated this model across the state for the Day Reporting Center and the CRC. So it's kind of a two-phase. We have our program as what it was, but now they also have an additional resource program. And so this is right off the Department of Corrections website. And so since 2017, 6 DRCs have opened: Knoxville, Nashville, Murfreesboro, Jackson, and Memphis, and a new location. There's Ashton cutting the ribbon at their new building just a few weeks ago. So I'm here tonight to thank the commissioners for your support, Mr. Peterson, Mr. Stahl, Chief Soroy, because we really helped to set some framework in place. We know about the epidemic of drugs. We know about the crisis our state faced, and together we did create a model that the state is using as an important tool. I'll just leave with this. The recidivism rate for the state of Tennessee is 48 to 50% when a felony offender is released from prison. 48 to 50% likelihood they're going to go back to prison within 1 to 3 years. But if they go to the Day Reporting Center, the recidivism rate drops to 22%. So, yay you, and thank you all for your support.
Thank you.
How many in the 3 years before it got transferred went through the Day Reporting Center? You have the numbers?
We had about 15 graduate because it takes up to a whole year to graduate. I believe it was about 100 referrals to get to that number. And, you know, we have some great success stories. One gentleman's assistant manager of a retail store, and one gal, this was felony charges with drug addiction. She's a key holder in a retail store, so we have some great success stories.
I just want to thank you, Ms. Haas, for all the work and your perseverance and tenacity of creating something like this with the help of your community partners. I think probably one of the most meaningful things I've done as a commissioner was go to one of the graduations. And it was just almost a speechless night to see the impact that this program's had on these people's lives. And one of the things that y'all help them do is re-identify who they were as people and then to get on a new path. So thank you for all that and put Johnson City on the map on this one. So thanks,
Well,
thanks
thank
for that
you,
too.
thank you. Forever, I will be a passionate advocate for this population. Ashton is the chair of the Tennessee Reentry Collaborative, and I'm the co-chair. So now I give a little bit of in-kind back from the police department. So thank you.
Thank you. And my daughter did an internship at the
She
Day
was
Reporting
wonderful,
Center,
yes.
and she really liked her internship there. So it's a great program.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Mr. Peterson's
Mr.
here.
Stahl, I believe your replacement is here.
I'll vacate my seat, so
Yeah.
let me introduce also, are you in the position to consider the certificate of compliance at this time?
Sure.
Okay. And I'll just introduce that. This is a consideration of certificate of compliance for Mr. Chris Joker, Tri-Liquor, 6681 Bristol Highway, Suite 76, Piney Flats, Tennessee. And this item is to consider approval of a certificate of compliance at that location. And we have various reports from police, legal, planning departments, and they find no disqualifying factors. This is before you for your review consideration, and I will vacate this position right now.
Is the applicant here tonight? Nope. What is the desire of the commission?
Well, while the paperwork's in order and the paperwork speaks to it being acceptable to approve it, you know, it's kind of one of those things you kind of like to have the applicant here with these sort of matters.
Especially when we fast track it to get here.
Are we aware of any special circumstance that the applicant could not be here? No.
I'd move deferral to the next meeting.
We have a motion for deferral. We have a second.
Just as a point of information, would the expectation that they be here have been made plainly clear to the applicant?
This was a very late submission. He wanted this done as an emergency. The staff, I did not handle the contact, but typically they're told they need to be here. I can't say for sure, but he was running out of time and got this in late.
Is this for a new opening or?
The ownership change. Oh, renewal?
And
I'm not
what are the consequences to him if we don't go ahead, if he's put it in as a late submission?
I believe they have some grace time with.
I was thinking that somebody had told me that their current certificate expires the 25th, something like that.
And we don't meet again. It's a 3-week spread. It's a renewal.
It's a certificate of compliance, which is not quite as in-depth as a beer license.
Correct.
We're not.
And we're really just rubber stamping, and with the liquor,
We are.
we really have no authority over that. So I would be comfortable
I will
going
move
ahead.
for approval.
Yeah, okay. We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brockland,
With the rationale noted in the meeting minutes, please, no.
Commissioner Wise,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock,
Yes.
Mayor Tomita.
Yes.
Just as a point of information, would it be possible to incorporate something to that effect on the actual application forms?
That they would sign.
Yeah, and I understand that.
I understand, yeah.
That I should make
Yeah.
an appearance.
Absolutely. Incorporate that.
We want to be easy to work with and clear. Mr. Peterson?
All right, at this time, if I could ask Captain Powell and Chief Harrison to come up, please. Would like to make a special recognition of the training division of the Johnson City Fire Bureau. Commission, it's with great pleasure and pride that I inform you of a very significant accomplishment by our training division in the Fire Bureau. With the help and under the leadership of Captain Powell and Chief Harrison, the Johnson City Fire Department accumulated a total of 11,062 hours of training in the last year. This places them as in the position of receiving the most training of any department in the state of Tennessee in the last year. This is approximately 2,000 more hours than the second place department in the state of Tennessee. So this is a very, very significant accomplishment by the training division and the fire department. All of the employees putting forth the extra work and the willingness to get training to better prepare themselves for handling day-to-day operations, as well as preparing themselves for the career path that we have approved in the last 12, 15 months. Everybody has a very clearly defined career path to follow, and they know what all of the requirements are for promotion at each step of that career path. And I think this is true evidence that we have a very dedicated group of men and women in the fire department that are very eager to learn and prepare themselves for the future and for promotions. And equally or more importantly than that, it's a direct reflection on the City Commission's commitment to fund this training. This is an exceptional number of hours, but it didn't come cheaply. But it's a great investment, just like investments in air packs and trucks and ladder trucks. It's all an investment in the betterment of our employees, which absolutely is our most valuable asset. So on behalf of the fire department, I'd like to place this in our trophy case out front to recognize their accomplishment and to congratulate you gentlemen and all of your employees and our fellow team members on quite an accomplishment. So thank you very much, and if you'd like to add anything to that.
No, just a couple of short things. Number one, it didn't come cheap, and thank you all for that funding and obviously the commitment to keep us on track to becoming the best we can be. And certainly, as you said, it is our employees. They spent time away from the job here and sometimes time away from their families. So it was certainly came at a sacrifice, and thank you for your support.
Good job. Thank you. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
The next item on your agenda is the manager's report.
Yeah, I think you're after the consent agenda. We've got some folks here
Okay,
that have been very patient.
All right.
Can we move them up?
Yeah.
Bring candy.
I know.
Why don't we move them up?
Well, we
Yeah,
actually
let
just
them
have-
give us the candy. Come on.
All right, you want to do consent agenda or appointments to the Park and Rec Board?
Let's go ahead and do appointments and then do street closures.
Okay.
Okay.
The next item on your agenda is consider two appointments to the Park and Recreation Advisory Board. Mr. Mark Durkee's first term has expired, and he has expressed interest in being reappointment. Dr. Tim Zients has resigned his position, leaving the 2 years unserved on his present term. Dr. Zients also serves as chairman of the Planning Commission and advised us that he felt like that was a bit much for him to carry with at this time. So you will make a full appointment for Mr. Durkee's position and a partial appointment or an appointment to fill the unserved 2 years remaining on Dr. Zients' position on the Park and Rec Advisory Board.
Okay. I was going to make a motion to reappoint Mark Durkee. He's only served one term, so give him an opportunity to serve a second. And in keeping with the spirit of Mark Upton, who has a significant experience in mountain biking and mountain trail biking, which we are ready to embark in a big way into. It would be good to have that skill set on the board. And also thank Dr. Zients for his service to the city. We'll miss him on that board, but we're glad he's staying with the planning. So I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
Okay.
If I could comment, I think this is another one of those examples where we've got 2 appointments to make and probably a dozen or more very high-quality names to draw from. And so I would echo the mayor's selection for the rationale he's indicated, but to those who don't find themselves being appointed, it is not a rejection of your application. And please, in a year or even in the coming months, when there are other vacancies, rest assured that your contributions will be much valued and there are places for them.
I was going to say that, but
I was too, so.
Okay, well, then I'm sorry, I'll just sit back
we
and let you do
appreciate
that.
So ditto and ditto. Any other comments? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin,
I'm okay with the 2 individuals. I think they're both good individuals. Probably would not have been my top 2 selections, so I'm going to vote no.
Commissioner Wise,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock,
Yes.
Mayor Temita.
Yes.
Your next order of business is consideration of a street closure request from the Chamber of Commerce for their annual Trick or Treat on Walnut Street event to be held on Tuesday, October 31st, between the hours of 3:30 and 5:30 p.m.
Yeah, no.
We would recommend your
Let's
approval.
get to sleep the candy. We're fine. Would you?
You had us as we brought candy.
Not that we need any introduction, but for the record, if you state your name.
I'm Gary Mabry. I work at the Chamber of Commerce. This is Tanya Tizer, who is Assistant Vice President at Home Trust Bank. For more than 20 years, we've done this event. We look forward to October 31st and what has been estimated 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 various attired, costumed adults, children, lots of fun. Many of our businesses, such as Thomas Eaton, who was one of the originators 20-some years ago, does this, and now Home Trust Bank is continuing it. But I just want to say one thing. Isn't it great to be alive and live in Johnson City after hearing all these wonderful reports tonight? And with that, we'll answer any questions about Trick or Treat on Walnut Street. Come out and be with us. And thank you.
Do you have to wear a costume?
Well, some of us are just naturally costumed, but I'll speak for me.
You simply need to bring ample amounts of candy.
Yes, and
Spoken by our dentist.
Yes.
yes, anything to promote business, sir.
Yeah.
That's what the chamber's all about.
That's exactly what the chamber's
We've got a
about.
motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin,
Yes.
Commissioner Wise.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock,
Yes.
Mayor Temita.
Yes, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you, and happy
Thank y'all for
Halloween.
what you do,
Happy
too,
Halloween.
and all
It's a
the
pleasure.
businesses.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
All right, start to my left. Commissioner Fowler, anything you'd like to pull?
No.
Vice Mayor Brock?
No.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
No.
And Commissioner Wise?
I feel like I should have something just to spice it up, but I don't either. Yeah, I've got this Three Musketeers, so I'm good.
Very good. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
All right, motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin. Commissioner Wise.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Mayor Temita.
Yes. Beason?
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4648-17. An ordinance to abandon a portion of Hamilton Place upon the terms and conditions contained herein and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith. Ready for your consideration on first reading.
Ms. Carey?
Petitioners are requesting the abandonment of approximately .2 acres of Hamilton Place right-of-way in order to construct additional parking spaces and a turnaround for a new development. There's currently a 12-inch sewer pipe running through the property requiring the preservation of a 15-foot easement for access to allow for future repairs. City's also requiring there be a drainage and utility easement over the entirety of the property requested to be abandoned. Planning Commission unanimously approved this at their September 13, 2016 meeting. Petitioner requested the abandonment be indefinitely deferred by the commission until they had time to get their survey and plat together. This is before you, and we do recommend approval.
Very good. Any questions for Ms. Carey?
You don't see any issue with this abandonment at all?
No, sir.
Okay. It's not going to be something that's going to interfere with change in road construction someday down the road? There would be any need to do so?
No, sir.
Okay.
It's by the roundabout circle. Right?
Do we have an easement?
Yeah.
I move for approval.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of a resolution to annex 3244 Knob Creek Road. A resolution to annex certain property located within the 11th Civil District of Washington County, Tennessee, adjoining the present corporate boundaries of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to incorporate the same within the corporate boundaries of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, said property being known as the Mackey annexation. To zone said property RP2 planned residential as described herein, and to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee accordingly, being a part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, is ready for your consideration on second reading and public hearing.
Very good. Ms. Carey?
This is an owner-initiated annexation of approximately 3.31 acres of land. It's located at 3244 Knob Creek Road. Water is available to the property, however, sewer is not. The petitioner is aware that the city has made no commitment to provide sewer and has acknowledged and understands and wants to proceed with the annexation. The Planning Division is recommending RP2 zoning, which allows single-family residences consistent with the immediate area. Johnson City Regional Planning Commission unanimously approved this annexation plan of service and RP2 zoning, their July meeting. Do recommend approval.
Very good. Guess second reading, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody here to speak for or against the annexation? Come on up, please. You'd state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Tyler Mackey, 3244 Knob Creek Road, the owner of the address, and requesting annexation.
And you are aware that sewer is not available, correct?
Yes, we signed a form saying that we weren't looking for it anytime in the immediate future or long-term future.
Like ever? Or,
Ever.
Okay.
You're interested in your children going to Johnson City schools, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Good news.
All right. Anybody have any questions for the petitioner?
Happy to have you as part of the city.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Very good. Anybody else here to speak for or against the annexation? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Have a motion? Second? Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Peterson, just a clarification. I know we have to have 3 readings on ordinances. Do we, by our own rules or by state rules or by any rule, have to have 3 readings on a resolution?
That is a question we have asked several people, and no one is willing to give us a definitive answer. So we're erring on the side of conservancy and reading a resolution for approval 3 times.
Okay.
That way, we're in the best defensible position we can be in.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other? Mr. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van
Yes.
Brocklin? Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes. Ms. Carey?
Your next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4646-17. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith, and amendatory thereof by assigning a RP2 planned residential to certain property within the 11th Civil District of Washington County, Tennessee, known as the Mackey Annexation, is ready for your consideration on second reading and public hearing.
Now, Ms. Carey.
This is the ordinance applying the RP2 zoning to the annexed area at 3244 Knob Creek Road.
Scary, did this have to have a neighborhood meeting?
No, because it is an annexation.
All right, we'll open up the public hearing. Anybody here to speak for or against ordinance 4646-17?
Are you for this one too? Just wondering.
I'm also in favor of this. Tyler Mackey, resident of owner 3244 Knob Creek Road.
That's shocking, yes.
Very good.
Okay.
Didn't see that coming.
And I didn't see that coming. Anybody else? All right, we'll close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Would Mr. Mackey like to tell us one more time that he's for this? No, just kidding. Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin? Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes.
Your next order of business is consideration of the plan of services for the annexation of property located at 3244 Knob Creek Road.
Move
And
approval.
public hearing.
You need public hearing on?
For
Yes,
planned
sir.
services? Okay.
Okay.
All
Tyler,
right.
get ready. You got to come
Tyler,
back
get
up.
ready. Here
One
you
more
go.
time. Are you sure you really want to do
I'll
it?
open up the public hearing on the planned services for ordinance 4646-17. Anybody want to speak against this plan of services? How about for?
I again am for this and understand the terms and conditions.
Very good. Anybody else?
Move
Close
approval.
public hearing. Ms. Jennings, call the roll.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes. Very good.
Thank you for being a good sport.
Yes.
Thank you. Yep.
Your next ordinance for consideration is ordinance 4647-17. An ordinance to abandon the Johnson City public right-of-way on Ed Baxter Road is ready for your consideration on second reading. As you discussed at your last meeting, public hearing will be held in conjunction with the third reading.
Ms. Carey?
Yes, Hudson Automotive has requested that the city of Johnson City abandon the current Ed Baxter Road public right-of-way. The petitioner plans to use the adjoining land and the current right-of-way area to construct a new Johnson City Ford car dealership. Tennessee Department of Transportation owns the fee simple in the southeastern section of the right-of-way, which is this area right here. TDOT requires a recommendation from the city of Johnson City before it can proceed with abandoning its interest in the road and dispensing the excess land. Planning staff conducted traffic counts on the street and determined that Ed Baxter Road has an average traffic volume of 64 cars an hour. Thus, the road is significantly used by residents in the adjoining neighborhood for cross-access from Bristol Highway to East Mountain View Road. The current road also serves as Johnson City Transit bus route and a school bus route. With this traffic volume, the use of the road for public transit and school purposes, a replacement of the current right-of-way is warranted. The developer, therefore, proposes that the current right-of-way be abandoned and a new road constructed at the developer's expense. This passed on first reading to be considered on second reading, and City Commission did move the public hearing to this item on third reading. In order to ensure that the design and location of the new road will meet the requirements of the city and that the public is not deprived of the cross-access at any time, Johnson City Regional Planning Commission recommended the abandonment of the right-of-way subject to its approval of a preliminary subdivision plat before approval of this ordinance on final reading and subject to this ordinance becoming effective after a proposed road replacement has been constructed by Hudson Automotive and accepted by the City of Johnson City. Mr. Penzola has been in contact with Hudson Automotive, and they have discussed placement of the road, and he's ready to discuss that. I have the location previously was discussed to be at Meridell Drive. The proposal at this point and what is preferred by Public Works is that it align close to Tucker Lane. And I put that in front of you so you can see the handout.
Mr. Penzola, you want to give your input, please?
We went back and considered the placement, and we talked with representatives, and we're recommending that the placement actually be at Tucker Lane. There is some guide wires, and we wanted to line up on Bristol Highway with a driveway across the street, so it will have a left out and a right out. And there will be some offset at Tucker, but we believe we can overcome that. So we're going to recommend, our recommendation is to have it on that side. That gives you better spacing along Bristol Highway at the access points back into the neighborhoods. And that's all we have to say.
Traffic engineers have looked at this. Do they anticipate this to be any worse than the current stacking and left turns and everything coming off of Ed Baxter?
No, it's minimal. There is really, we looked at Bristol Highway in total. From our vantage point, we don't see accident issues. And we also don't see volume issues.
Even as currently?
Currently or in the future with this.
Okay. So you don't foresee anything worsening by changing the location of the road? That was probably my number one question last time when I voted no about proceeding. I still think that it makes sense to have the subdivision proposals in front of us to vote on it, but as long as we're comfortable that we're not creating a safety issue there.
Yeah, where the development is occurring is back in Cardinal Forest in the back part, and their access, we happen to know people, their access is actually up Tucker Lane. So if you look at a map, you'll see where any further development would actually be along Tucker Lane. That's where the vacant land is. So we think this lines up well.
Lines up better.
Then it provides the access because of the limitations of Timberlake. We do, when you're coming off of State of Franklin, coming across the bridge, you can't make a left into Timberlake, so you go up to the next point. So we think that a lot of those folks that are accessing are actually going back towards the Timberlake neighborhood. So we actually feel this is a little better.
Okay.
There's not a sight distance issue. We're providing for good separation of the transportation system. We are in favor of having the road for sure, and think it's more advantageous for us to be at Tucker Lane than it would be on the other side.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Would this be a place, there wouldn't be a traffic light there? You wouldn't want to put one in the future at that spot, that point?
When today we couldn't get a signal approved. There's not enough volumes anywhere along the road. When we did confront the state with the issue when they were building getting a lot of the car dealerships, their reply to us was, if you will consolidate all of them to one location, which they didn't want to do. So it's hard to get the type of volumes needed to justify a signal. The question becomes is on gapping, and that's what the residents have more than likely voiced their issues about. So we have the signal at Creekmore and the signal at Carroll Creek. but it still probably doesn't give them the type of gapping that people are looking for. So if there was to be a signal, this actually would be a pretty good location for that signal. We looked at Wayfield, which has developments that go back along Wayfield, but it's too close to the ramp. It would cause us a little bit of concern with the traffic.
So future, that might be a place if the traffic increases there.
Right. Or gapping becomes an issue because the volumes on Bristol Highway are tending to be relatively flat as it is happening around the town. It would have to get above the 26,000 or so that we're at. So if you got to 40, 45, then they may pay attention to the gapping.
Very good.
Thank you,
Any
Phil.
other questions? Do you have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes. Mr. Peterson?
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4640-17, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled "An Ordinance to Adopt a Code of Laws and Ordinances for the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith, and amendatory thereof by changing from R5 High Density Residential District to B4 Planned Arterial Business District, certain property located at 3407 and 3409 Timberlake Road," is ready for your consideration on third reading.
Ms. Carrier?
As discussed, this is a split-zoned parcel. The petitioner would like to use this lot for storage of boats, that sort of thing. And of course, it requires a special exception by the Board of Zoning Appeals. During the second reading, City Commission discussed the possibility of adding a covenant to the specific lot. That agreement is in front of you. It has been signed. Our attorney has approved that agreement. It is to be recorded when a special exception BZA that is brought before BZA. So,
Any questions?
Move to approve 4614-17.
We have a motion, a second?
Second.
Motion and a
Now,
second.
the agenda indicates that we're going to have a public hearing, but it's third reading, so I
third
don't,
reading.
we already had one at the
The
second
public
reading.
hearing, yeah.
I know, I'm just telling you what the agenda says. At some point, somebody may think that should have mattered.
Any other discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Appreciate all the work that staff has put into this. That wasn't an easy issue to address, so
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4642-17, which is your supplemental budget ordinance for closing out FY17.
move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion, questions? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4643-17, an ordinance adopting tax rates for the 2017 tax year. Again, I will remind you, this is necessary as a result of the reappraisals in Sullivan County. And what this does is create an equalized tax rate for the city properties located in all three counties. It ensures that there is no additional revenue generated by these adjustments in the tax rate.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4644-17, an ordinance authorizing the City of Johnson City to enter into a certain right-of-way access agreement with the Tennessee Independent Telecommunications Group, LLC, doing business as Iris Networks, LLC, which agreement is appended to this ordinance as Exhibit A and incorporated by reference herein as fully as if set forth verbatim, and to repeal all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith. Ready for your consideration on third and final reading.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van
Yes.
Brocklin? Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4645-17, an ordinance releasing the city's right to reclaim all or any portion of an unopened portion of Beach Street on real property located within the corporate limits of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee. Ready for your consideration on third and final reading.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions, discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes.
This brings you to a presentation and a recommendation from the Police Department concerning funeral escort policy. Chief?
Pearson. Good evening, Commissioners.
Steve?
Commissioners, the Police Department has considered a change in our funeral escort policy for some time now. We've done much research and held much discussion, and we want you to know on the front end that we've not taken this recommendation this evening lightly. For what we believe are good reasons, we believe it is time at this time to change our policy. As you can see, this is the state of police funeral escorts in Johnson City and in Tennessee and generally in the South. It's a time-honored tradition. It promotes respect for families, and it dignifies the passing of the deceased with an escort. It provides safe conduct to the gravesite, and I have safe conduct in quotes for a reason, which we'll discuss. For the police, it's a public service. It's a courtesy that we provide to the community, and we've provided it for a long time now, for many decades, long before myself or Sergeant Tallmadge or Major Turner started here at the police department. And here's our concern, primarily traffic safety and liability. In Tennessee Code annotated 558183, I won't go into all that, but that's the guiding statute for processions in our Tennessee law. And I could boil it down in that sense. There's no requirement for law enforcement to provide this service, but it is a public service and a courtesy that may be provided. We have under the TML, or Tennessee Municipal League Risk Management Pool, their recommendation is, or their position, if you will, is that a member has the legal authority to provide that. And of course, the legal authority is provided through the Tennessee Code. What guides us not only are the laws of our state, but also case law. And there's a strong case law, Anderson, and a bright line law, if I may, Anderson versus City of Chattanooga. And what that places upon us as law enforcement or anyone who is leading processions, the burden is on the member to assure the procession route is safe for third parties. And this was the Anderson case, Anderson versus Chattanooga, 1993. And this was an unmanned intersection where a procession went through the intersection and another vehicle, seeing a green light, did not stop for the procession, proceeded through the intersection and struck another vehicle in the procession. There were injuries and in the process. So this is our current practice. This is what we do. This is what most law enforcement agencies in our state do. In Anderson, there was one vehicle leading the procession, and this is primarily what we do because of our limited resources and have done that for a long time. This was further affirmed by the Tennessee Court of Appeals in 1998, and this is what that appeal said. The city has the statutory authority to provide escorts, but it is not a duty. If a city decides to provide the escort, you take responsibility for a safe procession. And just to reiterate, Anderson versus City of Chattanooga, and that's exactly what I've just mentioned. If you undertake to provide an escort for the funeral, you have a duty to provide adequate personnel so that the escort was conducted properly under the circumstances. And this is assuring a safe route and having adequate personnel for traffic control. And that boils down to having an officer. If you want a safe route, rather than just an officer leading a procession, you'll have an officer at every intersection along the route, and that is our interpretation. Our historic and our present practice, we've had one car to lead the procession and others provided at the intersection for longer processions if and when available. So if we have a long procession and we're not busy, then we can put officers at intersections, but that does not happen too often with our calls for service. So we have these concerns at the police department. Crashes and close calls. Under crash reports, if you look at our crashes for about a 4.5-year period, we have 10 crashes that we can attribute to funeral escorts. There may be others that are out there that we did not, we worked as crashes, but we did not indicate that they were part of a funeral escort. There are anecdotal reports, and this is probably more telling than the actual crashes because this involves close calls in our escorts. Any officer you happen to pigeonhole will tell you some of the close calls that he or she has experienced. If you find officers in other cities who provide funeral escorts, you'll find those types of stories where there were close calls. We have those. Funeral home employees will tell you close calls that they have experienced, as well as participants. So we think that that is even more telling at this point. And in this day and age of the distracted and inattentive drivers, this is a real current concern with cell phones, with texting. We looked at our data in the last 2 years. Inattentive was the second most frequent driver action in crashes. So when you take all that into consideration, in a city our size, and with our traffic volume, and with the number of commuters and people coming into our city to enjoy a restaurant or a movie or what have you, it is a real concern. And the safety and of the public and exposure of the city, and then so the solution that we're recommending is to discontinue the practice. And back to the Tennessee risk management pool. The pool recommends that cities not escort funeral processions. That is their recommendation. However, if a city desires to provide these services under extraordinary circumstances, and I'll use the word rare, the decision should not be made as a matter of routine policy, but should be a discretionary administrative decision based upon those extraordinary circumstances. So the bottom line is this: cities should not provide escorts per TML, but if they decide to, it should be done only rarely and safely per the case law. We have had over the last 2.5, 3 years, several meetings with the funeral directors of our funeral homes here or their representatives here in Johnson City. We didn't want to approach this in a vacuum. We wanted to get their input and their feedback in this particular issue. And I would say, I'll just wrap it up with this comment. There's general support for the measure of discontinuing escorts due to close calls and potential for collisions. So what are the solutions in this regard? Family and friends can meet at the cemetery. And often there's a funeral nowadays, there's a funeral the evening before, and then there's a graveside the next day. That happens quite often. For a daytime service, once that's dismissed and the graveside immediately follows, then they can set a time for the graveside, and all of the mourners can converge at that point. And of course, one understandable concern among the funeral home representatives is this: we've been doing this for a long time. It's a public service. It's a courtesy. It's a tradition. It's a tradition in our city as well as the South. So there would have to be a change of mindset as well. So also not operating in a vacuum, we wanted to look at what other Tennessee cities did. And I polled quite a few cities, and I had 16 respond to me, and I have the list. But escorts provided, I had 7 that mentioned that escorts were provided in their city. Escorts not provided or had been discontinued, there were a total of 8 out of the responses. And then there was one small agency that just assisted processions through their town. So what were the comments? Why do they provide them and why do they not provide them? And you can summarize them as follows. For those that are providing escorts, simply tradition and public expectation. And for not providing escorts, public safety, liability, and available resources. And those are the concerns that we bring before you this evening. And I have just a few more slides. The police department trend, we have already begun to discontinue to make our roadways as safe as possible. We have begun to discontinue the practice of escorting groups such as car clubs and motorcycle clubs due to safety concerns and increasing frequency of requests. And of course, a city our size and the volume of traffic we have is a concern. And these are rough numbers. This is about a year and a half of data. And just to give you an idea of what time and resources we allocate from these 2 dates, we had approximately 547 escorts, which boils down to 45 escorts a month and about 45 minutes per escort average. So two times a day, about 1.5 times a day. So that takes up about, I think it was 67 minutes a day. So it doesn't really take up that much time, although we have other concerns that we have mentioned to you. And if we discontinue the escorts for funeral homes or funeral processions, we'll have a safer traffic environment for Johnson City. That is our goal and has always been our goal, and we think that this will contribute to that. Motorists, funeral home employees, officers, and anyone encountering a funeral procession will be safer. And also the reduced liability exposure for the city. We think that is as important. And then the cons, the dissolution of a longstanding accepted practice for our city. There are procession options. Private enterprise, if you go out to West Tennessee, you'll find that there are a number of niche entrepreneurs out in that area, and what they do is they provide escorts. It is not limited, escorts in Tennessee are not limited to law enforcement. The funeral home can themselves, if they're properly marked, can provide an escort, and private enterprises can provide an escort, but they are also responsible, just like we are, for a safe route. Limit the number of vehicles in the procession. There are a few agencies we found that do that. So rather than allowing however many vehicles in a procession, they'll limit it to 6, 7, plus the hearse and the police vehicle. The reasoning there is that that limited number can easily, if you stop at a red light, that number can easily follow through the red light and proceed through it. And then again, instead of processing, mourners can meet at the cemetery as an option. So our conclusion, our recommendation to the board this evening is that funeral escorts should be discontinued due to safety and liability concerns, with some exceptions similar to other cities, and I'll go into those. And I'm going to use the term industry standard. I just use that as a loose term at this point. From our research, other cities that don't provide routine funeral escorts may consider rare exceptions, and the exceptions are commonly military personnel killed in action, public officials or dignitaries, public safety officers, fire, police, EMS. And these exceptions are now in our draft policy, should we be permitted to proceed with this. And again, these are rare exceptions. They're not routine. They're planned well ahead of time, and sufficient officers are available to ensure a safe route. And often in cases like this, as we, in our experience in the past, we've asked for assistance from our sister law enforcement agencies, such as the Washington County Sheriff's Office and the Tennessee Highway Patrol. And again, that is our recommendation to you. Time frame, what we need to do if you permit us to move forward with this is to provide a letter to the funeral homes and to let them know that this is in place now and give them adequate time for them to move forward with any promises that they have made or any plans at this point. Get that before their clientele and put it into their process as well. So we will need a little bit of time there. But again, if this is approved by the board this evening, then hopefully after this evening, the majority of these requests will voluntarily taper off. And thank you again for your time this evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, and I'm here, of course, in Major Turner and Sergeant Talmadge for any questions you may have.
I think we discussed it pretty thoroughly in our agenda review meeting. I've gotten one call, 2 emails, 2 that were for supported suspending. Those were both funeral homes, and I had one citizen contact me. So,
Mr. Mayor, could we open the floor to any public comment on this topic? I would certainly want to hear from anybody who went out of their way to come speak to this issue.
Sure. Is that, is there anybody here who'd like to address the commission on the topic? Seeing none, I want to open a public hearing.
Chief, I would tell you that initially I was not in favor of the change. As you said, it's a long-held tradition and shows respect. When we really kind of got into, I never recognized, the length of some of the processions and how cars are exposed unless we have an officer there at that intersection. And going from like Morris Baker all the way out to the VA, for example, it looked like you needed 11 officers, to be able to cover every intersection, although I realize like when the last one comes through, they move up forward. And having talked with some of the funeral directors who feel like this is the right move to make, that I'm going to support it.
Is that a motion? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I trust our police chief and the police to make that decision, and if they think we should do this, I'm all for it, so.
Yeah, I would echo what the vice mayor said. I don't come at this decision lightly. I also drive down the road frequently looking in my rearview mirror at people who are not looking at me. And I recognize it's a different environment. And in one conversation with a funeral director, he described an episode where a distracted driver rear-ended a car coming, and the driver of that car was pregnant. The accident was pretty significant. Thankfully, no long-term injuries or loss of life. But, what's to say that doesn't happen the next time? And the last thing we want to do is be putting our people who are already often in harm's way again.
Very good. Anybody else? Ms. Jennings, if you call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Chief.
Chief.
Peterson, thank you very much. You and I didn't get a chance to speak, but could we make this effective September 1st? That will give us the opportunity, if I may.
It's 45 days, basically, so I think it's.
September 1st, isn't it?
Oh, September 1st.
Yes, sir. It's about 2 weeks, and I think by the time we get the letter to the funeral homes, if we can make this effective by that date.
That would
give us
mean the
time.
30 days would begin at the 1st of September, or?
We could do a 30-day from this evening if the board is more comfortable with 30 days.
I think you
I like
need that
that.
much time just
Yeah.
for the.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
So effective on the
30 days from
17th.
tonight. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
At this time, if I could ask Mr. Willis to come forward and make a presentation to you for consideration of an amendment to our existing vacation and holiday policy. We talked about this Monday night, and we'd like to make a formal presentation and ask for your consideration of some recommended changes, please.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present a proposal to you tonight, and also thank you for your willingness to add it to the agenda this week. Greatly appreciate that. We have a unique opportunity tonight to accomplish a couple of things. Number one, recognize and reward our current employees And then secondly, to enhance our ability to recruit and retain new employees. So with that, in 1991, the vacation policy for the city was revised to add some additional tiers after 15 years of service. So 26 years has passed since the last revision to our policy. And as you might imagine, as we discussed on Monday, we are really not meeting the needs of our current employees, nor are we in a competitive situation when we look at recruitment for new employees. And we really started this evaluation over a year ago, and quite honestly, the evaluation really predates me. So more than 2 years ago was this evaluated. Our current vacation policy is comprised of 7 tiers. We accrue hours each month on the second pay period of each month, and you can see that ranges from 6.67 hours for an employee with less than 10 years service up to 13.33 hours for an employee with 23 plus years of service. What we're recommending to you here this evening is to revise that schedule. The data and the research that we have done bears out the fact, as I already mentioned, that we're not competitive in the public nor the private sector, and we're not really giving our employees that work-life balance that they desire and quite honestly need, given the demands on each one of us every day, quite honestly. As I listened to the JC 101 participants, each one mentioned there was one common denominator in what they talked about, and that was our employees, their dedication, their loyalty, and the skill set that they bring to the table each and every day. So it was a great segue into this presentation tonight. The proposal would also address one of our main elements from our recent employee survey. I point out that we were already working on this project, but it certainly helps to address those issues as well. So our proposal to you tonight will be to modify that 7-tier structure down to 5 tiers. As I look at any project, we're always looking to make things as simple as we possibly can and look for efficiencies everywhere we can as well from an administrative standpoint. Going from 7 to 5 would certainly accomplish that. The 7 tiers can become cumbersome at times. And you'll see the new schedule also on the monthly accrual is consistent, going from 6.67 up to 14.67 for employees with 20 or more years of service. So it's a 2-hour bump in each of those 5 classifications. So very easy to explain to employees, very easy for them to understand. The data behind the proposal, if we look at ourselves against our neighbors, Bristol, Kingsport, the state program, as well as the Energy Authority, you can see, particularly in the 6 to 10 year category, we're well behind those that we're competing with for employees each and every day. And our employees talk with other jurisdictions, with other local governments, so they recognize where we are in comparison to our sister cities. Our current system versus our proposed system would change, as I said, to 5 tiers. The 0 to 5 year category would not change at all because we feel like we're exactly where we need to be for that classification. For the 6 to 10 year range, it would increase the number of days annually by 3. And you can see as you go right down the schedule, as we discussed on Monday, employees with 20 or more years service would also experience an increase to their vacation time as well. This puts us in a much better position against our neighbors. The delta prior to the change is 4 or 5 days in many cases. With the proposal, that would reduce down to 1 or 2 in most classes. In terms of the number of employees affected, 332 of our employees would not experience any immediate change, but the proposal would give them something to look forward to as their tenure with the city increases. We would have 130 employees that would immediately receive 1 additional day. They would begin to accrue toward that. 199 would receive 2 additional days, and 189 would receive 3 additional days. I would point out that our maximum limits do not change because we want our employees to take their time. We don't want them to bank the time until the point they retire. They need to take the time for themselves and their families. Next are holidays. The city currently observes 10 paid holidays annually, and you see the breakdown there. The last adjustment to that policy was 8 or 9 years ago when Martin Luther King Day was added. Since that point in time, it's remained the same. This is a comparison of Johnson City against our neighbors. You can see where we stand in that regard, and we would propose to you tonight to add an additional paid holiday represented by Christmas Eve. We have budgeted for a half day for Christmas Eve for several years. However, we have never made it an official city holiday. Well, what I would ask of you tonight is to create or add, Christmas Eve as an official city holiday. We're already budgeting the amount of dollars required to meet half of that requirement. And as we discussed on Monday, this is really a budget neutral proposal. We can cover the dollars required for both changes with slippage in our daily staffing plan. With over 1,000 employees, there's rarely a day, if any, that we are at full staff. So we have more than enough dollars to cover these two proposals. And I would welcome your questions and comments.
Any questions?
I like that you put a chewy piece of candy in your mouth and Steve stopped talking.
They put that up here for a reason.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I don't have a question. I guess I would just make a comment. I think we heard from the Johnson City 101 about the staff, and everybody wants to pay everybody more money, and there are inherent limitations on that. And there are little opportunities that come along like this that can begin to honor the commitment and the work of our employees. And we can talk about it being competitive in the marketplace, but I also think we want to be respectful to those who have invested their careers in the city. And to say, if you're working at Johnson City, we value you and the work you do in a way similar to our peers. And while it's a small gesture, I think it's a symbolic gesture, and it's one that I am supportive of for all the reasons you've just described, and so I would make a motion to approve.
I will second that, and I want to say, Mr. Ellis, first of all, thanks for the work you've done and the data and information you've given to us to really be able to make a very informed decision. I think this is definitely the way to go, and I wholeheartedly support it, and want to encourage our employees to take all their vacation.
Yes,
Everybody
yes, ma'am.
needs the rest and restoration in their lives.
Anyone else? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin, Commissioner Wise.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock,
Yes.
Mayor Temita.
Yes.
On behalf of our employees, thank you. I'm sure that'll make a great weekend for everybody when we make this announcement tomorrow, so thank you very
Well,
much.
Mr. Willis, our employees need to thank you because you did a fantastic job. You presented it well. You made a good case for it, and that's not always the case. So
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Yeah.
We love spreadsheets.
By the way,
Some like them more than others.
yeah.
All right, this takes us to the manager's report, and I'd like to start this report by asking Mr. Penzola to give us an update on some public works projects that you have expressed some interest and asked me some questions about, and then I've got a few other things we'll cover.
How do I get it to full screen? Is there something down here, Pete?
To the right, one more to the right.
One more to the right.
The other way, there you go.
Well, Mr. Penzola gets it queued up. Just as a matter of practice going forward, could we enumerate these reports on our agenda? We're an hour and 45 minutes into the meeting, and I, for one, didn't know. I mean, I'm glad to hear it, but it would just be helpful to know that it's coming, rather than looking at the word adjournment and then we get a slideshow. So
We skipped it earlier, though.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
And
But,
Mr. Penzola and I have talked about the fact that this is 5 minutes.
okay. Well, it would just be
This will
helpful.
not
It would
be
be
a-
nice, it would be nice in the
Yes.
packet to know we're going to hear about A, B, and C rather than
Yes.
surprise guest speaker.
Yes.
These are the,
Forward to it. I'm going to
Well,
offer a counter.
I look forward to
counter
it
on
too. I would
this.
like to have looked forward to it before 5 minutes ago.
these are the 4 major projects that we have ongoing. Mountain View Circle should be finished by the end of September. Had a lot of rain. Indian Ridge, State of Franklin's moving along. Lark Street, we expect a December letting. On the project, we still have a little bit of right-of-way to go. And Knob Creek, we're moving as fast as we can. We still expect that we would be in a position to bid the project in the summer of 2018. This is the roundabout project up behind Walmart, as you know, Mountain View and Browns Mill. This is kind of where we are today. And half the intersection's done, so they're working on the other half. That's why I feel very comfortable that we can meet those targets.
Mr. Penzola, Browns Mill will be paved from that point all the way down to
Yes.
State of Franklin.
Yes.
At that point in time, so.
And
There's gonna be a lot
I
of
just
happy
need to
people.
talk to Tom a little bit about Mountain View itself.
It needs
to
it
runs
there over
pretty
to
rough.
Rome Street's really bad.
This is Indian Ridge, and obviously we're adding a lot of lanes. Right now, they've been working on the east side of the road and building retaining walls, and hopefully in a month or so, we can have this all paved out. They finally got the walls in place. There's a lag time after you construct a wall. You can't put any pressure on it for quite a number of days. And they've started building the wall for the bridge on the west side. So this is going to take them some time, but we're we're fairly pleased with their movement on the project. This is Lark Street, and hopefully December. And this is the overpass project. In stormwater, we have just one project left, and that's the King Commons. Just as a reminder, this is the project. The contractor should be, by the end of next week, will be 95% complete. He's finishing up on the sidewalks. This kind of gives you an idea what the park looks like. You'll see the trees should be planted tomorrow. We sited the boulders today. The electrical's in, the water lines are in. So that project's moving pretty well.
Be sodded or seeded?
It all sod.
All sod?
And then the railing will be installed in mid-September. They're fabricating the railing now for the so there'll be railing along these edges anywhere where you got 4 feet or greater.
How's the lower part of the sign going to be done? Will that
We
indicate
met
the park? Or?
yesterday, and we're going to brick it, and then they'll have a concrete layer about 6 to 8 feet up, and then that brick layer will be about 12 feet. I think they call for 17. I think we're going to reduce that down to about 12. And then there will be an insert on either side for talk about the park, talk about downtown, talk about whatever you want to talk about. General Shell's donating everything, and Snyder Signs is fabricating the inserts.
It's likely to say King Commons, is it?
It will say King Commons on the stone overlay. It's about 7 feet high. So they're going to be, Thomas is going to be done in pretty close to about a week. The trouble we've had is that we're doing the road. So we've ripped up Commerce Street. There was so much utility work, and we still haven't got all the utilities in place, but all the conduits. So we're moving forward. So we're working on Commerce, and We've worked with all the property owners, the utility companies. It's been pretty complex, but I think we got everybody straightened out. This is them putting in the glow in the sidewalks. You can see the lighting system in parts of the park will have the bollard lighting, so that'll work out pretty well. This is the construction of King Street, and we've built the inset. We're ordering the materials. The brick takes a while. They don't have it in stock, so they have to actually manufacture it. So there is a delay in the brick. So that's why I'm saying that we won't be finished with our portion until sometime in the fall. Thomas will be out of the way, but we're trying to move as quickly as possible. So we've reset the curb as much as we could, and I think the road will pretty much be in place to do something in the next week or two. And you can see the sidewalks, and we'll pour the balance probably tomorrow of the sidewalk. These are some in-house projects we've been working on, intersection improvements, VA Trail, Sunset, King and Commerce, which you just saw. We're putting crosswalks at Main and Markets, so that will probably happen in mid to late September, and to finish out the sidewalk so we have everything up to what we consider to be the out boundary of downtown, which is Boone Street. Innovation Park Trail, I'll show you that. We're going to redo City Hall parking lot this fall. We've pretty much finished the design on that. Knob Creek, Sunset Drive, that one we will do in the next couple of weeks. That's simply providing for a right turn lane that we eliminated, and then we'll have a straight through, which will actually have a jog and a left turn movement. Highland Avenue Trail, that's coming from where Kelly Foods was back to Watauga to tie in a trail on the north side of the state of Franklin so that you can walk next to the ball fields and on that side of the street. We'll do that one this year. 9th Avenue, we finished up. This is a section between Roan and Welborn. That's the only uncurbed section in that part of town, and we just wanted to finish it up because we're starting the paving and of that neighborhood. And then school parking lots we have just finished. This is just to give you some pictures. This is what we've been working on it's about a 3-week project to get the sidewalk finished up on Sunset. So this is in front of the condos at the corner at Sunset and Sundale.
This will allow people out of town acres to walk to the mall now, if they can get across Sunset.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to build the loops, and this was a gap between Sundale and Roan. Didn't have anything, so we finished all that.
Actually, this would run all the way down, correct? Doesn't this, once this is connected, it would run all the way down to State of Franklin and the bike trail? Correct. This was the last little bit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're trying to do some connections, and this was one that we've always wanted to do. But it was a tough one. And we've worked with the homeowners association and that sort of thing. And then next week we will move to build the trail around Innovation Park, and we're going down the power lines on the backside of Innovation Park, and we've cleared everything, so we're ready to go. This is a fairly easy job. Should take us about a week to do. It'll be a gravel, same as the Tweetsy. So that we have that loop system, and then it ties into what we've just built this year, which is the trail through the VA, so that now we'll have a completed section of what we refer to as State of Franklin Trail from Legion all the way to Green Line. So that'll all be completed. And over time, there will be adjustments and upgrades.
So it's finished through the VA now?
Yep. This is the section in the back next to the homes. And then we went around the homes. We were trying to get around some of the historic buildings so that we could inform the citizens of what they're looking at and that sort of thing. I think it'd be kind of cool. And this is going down a section that goes down to the pond, and then we retrofitted around the pond. So all that's been done. The last section of that, we have to wait for the contractor to finish up at the cemetery because we didn't want to put rock down. They're running trucks over it. We're into intersection improvements. You've seen a few around town. We did Marketplace on both ends. That's out around Lowe's. State of Franklin Market was done. We just finished Roan and Unaka, Oak and Unaka, Oakland and Unaka, and we've just have to put the surface on Lakeview. These are where you have the there's movement in the asphalt, so we're just trying to level things up for the citizens. And then we'll finish up the program with Roan and Broyles when we get ready to pave Broyles. So this is just a sample. This is the one at Oak. Okay. Parking lots, we've been doing various parking lots. We did Main and Market, Downtown Square, and we just finished, Stratton, and today we finished Columbus Powell. That leaves us with City Hall. So this is kind of an end product of the striping at Columbus Powell. Okay. The resurfacing program, we're in progress at Stony Brook. We've got the leveling course down in Oak Park. We're in progress. So we should be finished as soon as the paving crews come back from Morristown. They'll finish up these two neighborhoods. We're working in them right now to get them ready. And then what we'll do is we'll go to Wellborn and get everything from the President's Home all the way down to Unaka, minus the one section that we have to do of 9th. We'll get that. Will be next. There's very little prep work. And then the downtown area includes King and Commerce and Boone and Market and that sort of thing. So we'll get those this fall. On the major routes, we finished Will Mary. We'll move to Lakeview in September. That'll be done. We are just trying to get coordinated with the railroad to get University Parkway, which is from Lamont down to State of Franklin. That's in front of the ball fields, and Watauga Avenue from State of Franklin. And that interfaces with the grant from the state to redo the railroad thing that you guys agreed to. And then we'll do Browns Mill at the time we put the final surface on for the traffic circle, Broyles Drive. We just get through the other ones and we'll get to Broyles. Orleans, there's a lot of, Tom's really been out there for a while, and there's just a lot of work. So he thinks he might be finished by the end of the year. If he is and we can get it paved, we'll get it paved. If not, we'll push that off to the spring.
Bill, as you look at Orleans Street and Burt, we had some real flooding issues in that area 3-4 years ago. Has all that been successfully resolved?
We haven't had the kind of events, first of all, that we've been into the range. When we get up above 1.5 inches within a fairly short duration, then we start seeing the frequencies, or we start seeing the flooding occur. And we've been to 2, but it's been spread a little bit. However, we made the improvements under Broadway, and we had a crushed 48-inch pipe that we replaced with a major box culvert. I think that's going to take care of us. So we've held off.
We haven't had a test. That would be my question. Have we done enough in that area where we can fill?
I think it was a choke point that got to flooding pretty quick. So that's what I want to see before I make any recommendation towards any further flood mitigation.
Bill, speaking of that area, what about the parking lot at Tweetsie Trail? When will that happen?
We don't have anything scheduled for the parking lot.
We'll find the money. That's what you want to do.
If you want to do it, we'll do it.
We can do it. No, we did.
Are you talking about an additional lot or surfacing the lot that's there?
surfacing the
Now,
lot.
I don't think any of the runners or any of the bicyclists that I've talked to have any expectation that'll get done or any great
I don't
feeling
think it's
need
a
for it
problem,
to occur.
but it's up to you guys. We'll get her done if that's what
Could
you want
we
to do.
go in there and put lines on it? I mean, people park all over the place, so it's not efficiently kind of used.
We can, we did
You
the
did it down
lines
the
at the pool, and those held up. We would have to do them, but we can do that. That wouldn't be a
I
problem.
know the chambers requested that. They've gotten a lot of complaints, I guess. But I thought I saw it in the budget. I really
I'll be
did.
honest with you, I haven't had one complaint.
Brenda's sending you a letter, I think, on it.
Okay. And this is the work we're doing in Oak Park. We're doing a lot of the streets, Woodmont, Woodland, Fairway, et cetera. Club Drive, I think we were working on today. And so we're in there milling. And this is the work we have to do to prep in order to make it stable enough to hold the traffic. So that's what our crews do, and then Summers Taylor comes in with the milling. Under construction contracts, this is the Science Hill Wall. We expect October bid date. LED lighting, as you know, is ongoing and takes a few years to do. The Roan and Mountain View signal, we expect a December bid letting. We'll be putting up the temporary lights. We have the poles up, and we're trying to get the materials in. They should be in a week or so, and then we'll immediately get those up. And then downtown
So Phil,
lighting.
when does that mean there would be signalization at Roan and Mountain View?
There'll be a flashing red for the Mountain View so that you know to stop, and then there'll be a flashing yellow for the main line so that you know that something different, you're approaching something different.
When would that be blinking, and then when would it be actually functioning for stop and go traffic?
For stop and go, the function would probably be next summer because there is a long lead time in the poles because we put mast arms in.
Flashing
And
lights
the
will
flashing
be
lights will be 3
days.
weeks or so. As fast as we can get everything in. We've ordered it for some time. And then the downtown lighting upgrades, they're finishing up the contract or the bid documents. What we're going to do is go with existing poles, upgrade the lighting with 400 watt, and try to get the intersections lit a little more and see where we are with that. And we've ordered some additional lighting for the crosswalk at Spring. So we think that'll work at the 6 or so intersections along Buffalo and State Franklin. We've also, as you know, we went and put money in with Southern Railway to do a study for a quiet zone in downtown. We'll do a field review. We estimate that now to be mid-October. Within a week or so after that, there will be some preliminary cost estimates, and then the final report will be about 3 to 4 months after that field review. They just have a lot of work. Inner city neighborhoods, Becky's been working on that, and we've been doing it ourselves. Cobb Creek flood control, there will be a report presented to you at the next commission meeting. That's the one that goes along Austin Springs. We've gotten our accident data, now we're looking at rates, and so we know where congestion is, we know where accidents are. I just need the rates, and so they're finishing up that study. And we did it for signalized intersections and non-signalized. The pedestrian bridge, within a couple of weeks, we'll have present to PETA, a contractor. I think the price of just assessing the structure itself is around $10,000. We have $50,000 budgeted, and then ever how far we want to go with design after that. We don't know where we're going. There you go. questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
All right, Mayor, you had asked me to give you all an update on the short to intermediate term projects that you had asked about. Of course, the streaming of the commission meetings is complete, as is representation on the Blue Ridge Recreation Area Task Force. Mayor Brock serves in that capacity on that board. Branding and logo was another request by the board. We issued an RFP, received responses, and after receiving responses, we were contacted by a local firm who said that they were not aware that there was an advertisement for services. So I had our purchasing and our folks to restructure the RFP somewhat, and we reissued it. We will be evaluating the new responses, and that should be back to me sometime later this month, 1st of September, and we'll get a recommendation back before you, hopefully in September, for hiring somebody to get that process going. The park conversion process, we had been asked for some updated information by TDEC and the National Park Service. We've got all of that to MPS and TDEC. We're told that it all looks good and that we should have some sort of decision sometime in October. TDOT tentatively has that project penciled in on their December bid letting. So if we get the approval for the conversion in October, as we hope, that should keep us in line to be able to certify the right-of-way so that TDOT can bid the road project at their December letting. We've talked about looking at a management service for Freedom Hall. As you're aware, we've made an inquiry to the State Attorney General with a question about alcohol sales. We're awaiting, as you directed, a response from the Attorney General before we move that any further. I did make inquiry this week about where the AG was with his opinion, and the response was it typically takes 2 to 3 months before we'll get a kind of answer out of that. We sent the request down into May. Senator Crow passed it on to AG very early June, so hopefully the next month or two, we'll get something out of the AG's office and we'll have some definitive
I
answers.
think it's fair to say that our assessment of what constitutes a month and what theirs is might be a little different.
Is that
Yes.
essential that we have that part in there to send out an RFP?
I don't think so. I think you're,
Send it out.
Send it.
we're just looking for a little direction.
Yeah, I think send it out. You probably want to, and I believe Charlie talked about this, kind of couching prospective revenues so that if all of a sudden they start, if some significant thing happens that alters the business model there, we're not totally out of the potential benefit from it. So is there?
We could always issue a base RFP with the equivalent of what we do in a bid, an ad alternate. So in other words, you're asking them for 2 responses, scenario A and
Without.
scenario B,
With and without.
and receive responses that way. So that's the desire of the board. We'd like to get that moving.
I think I heard
Okay.
people say.
At least 3.
Send it
Charlie,
out.
let's see if we can.
At
Do
least
you,
3.
do you know exactly what the commission is asking of you in that RFP? I'm not sure that we've been real clear on that. So do you feel comfortable in what you're asking for? I mean, from my standpoint, I would like to see whatever firm comes in take total management of it. They're going to have to obviously be accommodating to ETSU and ETSU's use, and they have to understand that. But I don't want to have somebody managing it and us managing a portion of it and ETSU managing a portion of it. And I would hope that that's
That
the
is my
feeling of the
understanding.
balance of the commission and your understanding.
Yes, sir.
But do you need an understanding over and above that? I mean, from my standpoint, if they're willing to do it for us and we're not going to be paying them a subsidy, I don't have any particular expectation of sharing in the revenue. What I want to see is this facility well utilized and to the benefit of the public well beyond what we're making a benefit to the public at this point. We want to see acts being brought in that we're not currently seeing. And if that's a matter of they can do that and not have a subsidy and they get all the revenue, I don't have a problem with that personally.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of this is the promotion piece, that we can't be in the promoting and producing of shows. A private company that's managing the facility potentially could be.
Based on our prior conversations, my understanding was this was an all or nothing RFP. We want to know who's interested in totally operating the facility and what the cost or benefit to us would be. And from that, this body will make a determination as to whether or not to hire someone to provide that service under the terms and conditions proposed, or you can reject all of the proposals and continue doing what you're doing, or modify what you're doing and continue to run it as a city-operated facility. My understanding was there wasn't any partial in and out to it.
I make a comment. I'd just like to say, you all have a draft I compiled, and it is what it is, a draft. And I would just ask you to look at it before it's finalized and formatted, simply because if there's something in there that absolutely is contrary to your thoughts, let's remove it now rather than send it out and, somebody misunderstood or
You may
something.
want to send it to us again.
I don't have a
speak for
problem with that.
anybody else.
I've got it in my briefcase.
But it is a
actually.
draft.
Thank you for asking before I did. Yeah.
But it is a draft. It was not something definitive to send
And
out
I think the
tomorrow.
last time you showed us the draft, there was also conversation that, just even suggesting this in the local media, that you started being contacted from people who did this.
Right.
And I think we talked at the time about, I would be very curious to have them look at a draft RFP and tell us what we haven't factored, or tell us, what their feedback. They could be very helpful in finessing the RFP because they have knowledge of it in a level of detail that we may not.
It's like one firm mentioned to me that they made a proposal, I guess it was Gatlinburg or somewhere down there, and they apparently were tapped to manage the facility as they proposed, and then the city council said, "Oh, that wasn't really our intentions. We wanted you to kind of, not do this or that." And they said, "Well, that's not what the RFP said," and they made a proposal that was apparently not as clear as they responded. So any things like that, or I just any feedback I appreciate. So.
Okay, as you know, we have a number of IT projects in order, software projects. First of all, we are in contract with Cartograph to replace our work order system. They're currently in the phase of data conversions from all of our files in water, sewer, and public works. That's going to be quite a lengthy process. Once this work order system is up and running, it will be accessible to all of our departments across the board, and there will be one central repository of data which Mr. Elmore will manage and supervise. This is going to be extremely helpful to us and make a lot of data available to departments that don't typically have access to some of this data. Our CityView software that's was purchased for development services is in. Training's occurred. It is live. We're using it. There's still some adjustments and some debugging going on, as you might imagine, with that big of a transfer. The comments we've gotten so far, both from inside and exterior users, has been very positive. Been a number of comments that we're way ahead of most people in terms of the permitting process, and that they feel like it's going to be very helpful once everybody gets used to using it. We're also, I believe it's next week, we will receive the proposals on the West Walnut Street Master Plan. We'll go through and select a firm there and be back to you within the next month or so with a recommendation to hire a firm for doing that project. And the federal TDOT, or DOT, is requiring all cities to come into compliance with the ADA. And they're doing this by requiring that a transition plan that has been required for years be on file with your state DOT before you're eligible for grants. That has to be in place by the end of calendar year 2018. So we are in the process now of data preparation and presentation to a firm so that we can begin working with them to get our transition plan started. There's money budgeted this year to do that. It's probably going to take us right up to the winter of 2018 to get that done. It's a huge project. It impacts every road, right-of-way, sidewalk, bathroom, building, that park that we own has to be evaluated, deficiencies identified, and a corrective action plan put together. That's what the transition plan is. This is something that every city in the state of Tennessee is dealing with right now. So I'm sure there will be a lot of conversation about that over the next 15, 18 months.
So this plan should give us an idea of a range of what the cost is going to be?
Correct. Yes, ma'am. Okay, we saw the fire award this evening. Diamond fields and rectangular fields, as you're aware, we've identified several pieces of property for discussion, and we have made a presentation on probable funding sources. You've got debt service payment roll-off in 2019, calendar year 2019 and 2020. That will make the payments required to do those athletic fields. To do anything prior to that will require additional revenue or the reprioritization of an existing service in order to free up the revenue to do that. Again, we stand ready to move in any direction. We're just waiting on a little direction from the board.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes, ma'am.
And Commission, if we could all kind of talk about this a minute. One of the properties that we've had interest in is close in proximity to Wing Park. So if we're talking about 2019, the availability of property may change. So are we going to sit here and wait till 2019 to start pursuing that, or try to figure out some way to
How many acres is that?
pull that forward?
That is 30 or 37 acres.
37 acres out
Yes,
there.
sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I know when I was first on the commission, we went down that road, and the cost of developing it was astronomical. I haven't seen any evidence that has changed. So if it's something that we need to consider right now, I think we need to have that, not just that we buy the property, that what's it going to cost to make it functional. It was not a pleasant figure that we saw that time, because we refer to it as the rock pile for a reason.
Well, I think we were going to get a readjusted look at it to see.
Yeah.
We have some revised numbers that
You already have them?
we do. They're what, 6 months old? Yeah, they're fairly, they're newer than the numbers you recall. I mean, if you recall, as I pointed out when we first started talking about this, five diamond fields or so out there, it's going to be an $8 million project. But anyway, you go, no matter where you build it. But we will revise and refresh what we have discussed and get that information back to you within the next 30 days for continued discussion. Okay. Our new fire chief, Jim Stables, is in town. In fact, I saw him at school this evening. He and his family are getting settled into their new home. He was originally scheduled to start work on September the 5th, I believe it's the day after Labor Day. If he can get some things accomplished next week, he will probably start work with us a week early, which would be August 28th. He has been in real close contact with Chief Harrison and some of the folks in the fire department, and he's well up to speed on what's going on and has a good plan laid out, and I think that he will serve us well, and as soon as we get him on board, we will certainly have a change of command ceremony and recognize him, and we'll get all that information to you all well in advance of the date of that. As you know, earlier this evening on the agenda, you approved the purchase of a new lighting system for Cardinal Park. That, in conjunction with the work that Boyd Sports has done over there, will definitely make Cardinal Park one of the premier minor league baseball facilities, especially at the rookie league level, anywhere in the country. Boyd Sports is very excited about that, and they're going to be coming forward here in the next month or two with what their 3 to 5 year plan for further improvements over there is going to be. Auditors are here. They're doing the audit. All that's proceeding as expected. See no problems there. The Langston project, the demolition is complete. Construction plans for the next phase are nearing completion. Sean Shanks wants me to look at those one day early next week for comments. As I understand it, the Langston Group has received their 501c3 designation, and it has been suggested that they would perhaps like some time to see how successful their fundraising campaign may be in terms of seeing if there's any way that they could possibly raise the funding required to put the new vestibule back into the construction plans. So we'll get some more information together on that and hopefully meet with you in 3 weeks when we gather together again for some decisions on, do we want to go ahead and put that project out to bid quickly, or just what your desire may be there.
Let me ask you a question. I think as we had the discussion was that the plans that were developed had to be such that that would be an easy addition if they were able to raise those dollars. Now, obviously, there would be some benefit as far as lowering the cost if it was all ready to go at one time. But I just want to make sure that if it's not ready to go all at one time, that it remains an easy option as we move forward from the plans currently being developed. And as you look at those plans, certainly that should be one of the things that should be very, very carefully scrutinized.
The key to that is the elevator, though. So if renovations start before there's a decision on the outside, the elevator has to go, and it takes up a big part of space. If the outside is built with the vestibule, then the elevator goes in a different location and a staircase goes in a different location. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. It's my understanding, too, in talking with them, they have secured the donation of all the block and brick for the addition. That's a donation. And they have a full-time, not full-time for them, professional fundraiser who's given their time to help them raise funds. And their 501c3, so
that will
they're
hopefully
serious
ensure
about it.
success.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yes, sir.
I think we just need to be aware that time rarely makes the price of a project go down. And we could be looking at a larger deficit for the project at hand if we put it off too long.
Yes, sir. Freedom Hall renovations, the pool area is very near completion. I saw that this morning. I think they're going to start putting water in the pool in the next day or two. Everything's been painted, cleaned up, ladders repaired, lights replaced in the pool vessel. It looks a new floor surface. It looks like a brand new area. It's remarkable the work that they've done there. Work on the concession stand renovations is underway. The floors have been redone, and they're waiting on the arrival of new roll-up doors and countertops. The interior hallways in the arena area are complete. They're now beginning to work on the corridor that goes around the arena in that outer hallway. I think that work's probably going to take another 6 or 8 weeks or so to get totally complete, but it certainly gives the building a whole new look again. I mean, it almost changes as much as the paint and the seats did. It's going to be a really dramatic difference in the building. It's going to add a lot to that.
Concession stands?
Concession stands are underway. Yes, sir. Work at Civitan Park, the design for the renovation of 2 of the fields is being worked on right now. We have made a significant increase in funding to the agricultural and horticultural budget for Parks and Rec. They've really been hitting that hard with fertilizer and sand over the spring and summer, and we've seen a tremendous improvement in the quality of the turf over there. So we're hopeful that the 2 fields we're doing are the 2 worst ones, that we can get that work done, and with a current enhanced maintenance program that we're on, we may not have to rebuild the other 3 fields with what we're doing. We've been very pleased with what we're seeing to this point, and that would result in a tremendous cost savings for us. So that's the sports science project, as you all are aware, several of us made a trip to China and Taiwan first of and middle of July. Since our return, there have been ongoing conversations with several different investors and groups of investors that are interested in supporting the project. We've looked at an alternative location, which is an existing building. Currently there is a contract on that building, and the person holding the contract has expressed interest in potentially remodeling that building and leasing it for use by the sports science facility. The folks from ETSU have reviewed that. We walked through it with some representatives from Burleson Construction. It is doable. Right now, everyone is pretty much in a holding pattern until December, when there are multiple investors from Asia that will be visiting the area to look at the Innovation Park property, to look at this building if it's still available, and they're still trying to put together the funding necessary and the programming necessary to get this project up and running. They had a very successful baseball camp at Milligan about a month ago, and from what I understand, the feedback and reception in Taiwan was tremendous, and that rather than the 10 or so kids that they had this year, there's a good possibility it may result in hundreds of athletes that may come over here for camps next summer. So the desired end result is coming together. This project, I feel like, is really picking up momentum. There seems to be an increased level of interest and some very sincere interest in funding this project privately. I would remind the general public, and as a point of clarification for the board, our commitment to this project is to be a facilitator, to help this project come together, and to commit the use of the 30 acres of land that we own out in Innovation Park. There is no commitment on the part of this body to fund the construction of any of the facilities, but to this point we have had very good success in the facilitation role and the building of relationships with interested parties, and we feel real good about where this thing is going, and I'm very pleased to report that the investment made on the part of the city for the trip is certainly paying dividends at this point in terms of the relationships made and the new relationships created as a result of that trip.
On the building right now, it may or may not be available. Is there a backup? Are you looking at other sites just in the event?
To this point, there has not been another existing building located that would accommodate the project. It's, as you know, they really need a building plus 15 or 20 acres. And that's a pretty unique requirement that's not easily filled. So I'm not saying there's not one out there, there just hasn't been one identified to this point, short of building
So
a new
if this
building.
one's not available, we're just really kind of,
Building one.
Well, it is my belief and recommendation that those who are going to pay for the building should have the right to decide if they want to build a new building or retrofit an existing building. My interaction with potential investors to this point, I think they're going to lean to wanting to build a new building so that they can program it and design it to where it's functional for the specific purposes that they want to accomplish, rather than trying to retrofit something that's going to have okay ceiling heights, but not really desired ceiling heights and room configurations and those types of things. But we're going to try to stand ready with either option that we can make work. And the last thing I want to bring you up to speed on is the project at Aerospace Park. The two county mayors and my two counterparts in Bristol and Kingsport and I have been meeting about every other week for the last couple of months, trying to, with lawyers and financial advisors and bond counsel and Mr. Wilson at the airport, to try to hammer out the details of the agreement necessary to get the 5 local governments on board and to get all the required legal documents in good order so that we can move this project forward. I got what I'm assured is the final draft version earlier today. I'm going to read through it before I send it to you, but look for that document in an email from me sometime in the next day or two, so that you can begin reading through it and formulating questions, so that we have plenty of time to ask our questions, get answers to our questions if there are any. The timeline we're working off of right now, the desired timeline, would be to get each of the 5 local governments to approve it sometime during September, with the goal being to have all of the local agreements and contracts approved and in place prior to the point in time that TDOT releases the grant information. In recapping that, the state of Tennessee approved $30 million in the supplemental budget this year for airport economic development projects. Oak Ridge Airport had asked for $15 million, which was in the original appropriation. So we feel like at least half of that is already committed. We're asking for $8.5 million from the state to be matched dollar for dollar from the 5 local entities. The pro rata share is determined on a population basis. Of the $8.5 million that would be pledged by the locals, our share is 22.5%. What is contemplated at this point would be a bond issue by the airport authority, backed by the pledge of the 5 local governments to make debt service payments over a 20-year term. And I don't remember the exact number. It's a real workable number for us, as it is the other 4 local governments. That's a great project. That's a project that really makes numerous pad-ready sites. It creates a new industry in the area. It's got the potential to create anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 new jobs that will be very good paying jobs from what we're looking at right now, probably well beyond the average wage for a manufacturing job or some sort of industrial job in the area. Some of these jobs will be $60,000 a year. Some of them may be $160,000 a year. Very, very lucrative project, and we're hopeful that we can get this thing moving forward. There's been a lot of work put into this, and we're all very pleased to report we're getting close.
so is this a next year budget item?
It is already in this year's budget.
This year's budget.
The debt service payment for this year is included in this year's budget, and so we're good to go. And it is my understanding that the other 4 local governments have also included debt service payments in their approved budget for FY18 as well. And I'd be glad to answer any other questions. And Commissioner Wise, I apologize. Phil and I both were lengthy, but hopefully it was of
Wanted to
value.
know.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share? Mr. Fowler?
Science Hill starts football tomorrow night against Elizabethton right here in Johnson City at Spurrier Field. So go Toppers, 7:30 tomorrow night.
You've given us the published annual budget. Is this available to the public and where?
It is on the website.
On the website.
And I don't know if we're still taking a hard copy of the library? Okay, there should be a hard copy at Johnson City Public Library as well.
So Monday night's the eclipse, or Monday afternoon's the eclipse. Want to
20-something.
suggest everybody have a
Monday
great
afternoon.
experience, but make sure they
Don't.
have appropriate eyewear. Do we know any other place in town? I've had people ask where they can get the protective glasses. Does anybody know?
Most places are out.
It's a little- If you haven't bought them by now, you're going to have to borrow some.
Or there's a method you can do it with pinholes. I'm not going to
Box over your
begin
head.
to explain
Not
how to do that, but I
scientifically,
have
let's
seen
do
it
that.
done. I'm sure they can tell you how to do it at the public library or over at the observatory at East Tennessee State University. I'm sure there's somebody over there.
I bet if you asked
in
the Google
astronomy and
machine, it
physics.
would tell you.
Yeah, my 4-year-old grandson could probably tell you.
The
too,
internet
you know.
probably is a good
Internet.
source for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't have to leave your chair.
There's a YouTube on
Siri.
there, for
Somebody will
sure.
know.
Yeah. So be safe,
Very
but
good.
enjoy.
Mr. Wise?
Commissioner
good.
Van Brock? Oh.
He is gone. So we'll call him meeting adjourned. Thanks. Have a good week. Have a good 3 weeks.
That's right. I better get the line with it.